when when families don't get on, when people don't get on, technical term for it is there's a Broigus. There's an issue, there's a feud, there's resentment, there's judgment. There's something that took place sometime in the past. It wasn't accepted or approved of, or it wasn't even necessarily the truth because it was only based on somebody else's opinion, somebody else's way of expressing it, perhaps containing exaggeration and so on, hyperbole especially. And that you carry on as if nothing can possibly have changed since then. Nothing could. When I think about those people that I don't really see, who I could see, who are not far from me, who are my family, I don't see, don't really think about, doesn't feel like there's anything there that needs to be dealt with. But yet, at the same time, there's clearly some issue, because when Nicola asked me to take her and pick her up from Sharon's so that she would be able to drink, knowing that I wouldn't be drinking, my first thought was a kind of fear and anxiety of the awkwardness that would occur about me going in for a moment. These are the people that I'm not choosing to see. They're not inviting me. I'm just there. And so it would be easier if I didn't come in, if I just park outside or wait outside and Nicola comes out. But I knew that that would promote Broigus. Why didn't he come in? Why is he outside? What's the problem? It's making something that doesn't actually exist in reality feel like it does. I've got nothing against Sharon, other than the last time I saw her, which was the first time in decades, a couple of decades at least, maybe longer. It didn't work out very well, but then I was a bit different back then. I wasn't really trying to be here. I was waiting to leave, waiting to carry on with my life, which wasn't here, and wasn't able to. This would be the one and only time I would do this, and after I finished, I knew that I would never do it again. I would never come round, and the only reason I was there was because Mum brought me there, because I hadn't seen her for such a long time, and my nephew, her grandson, was also down, whom she hadn't seen for a long time, but it was just not. When I walk into that way of living, how they live, how she lives, and technically kind of how Mum lives, how Stephen and Sylvie live, it is always so immaculate, so clean and perfect. It's almost like a show home. It never feels to me like it's somewhere I can just relax, kick back my shoes, sit comfortably. Things are always white or light or bright, and they're the very things that just don't let me settle. I'm not comfortable, I'm not at peace, so that I'm not able to be myself, whoever that is, the most natural, authentic me of the moment. I'm not interested in what they do or what they've done. I don't want more story. I don't want thoughts that I have to take in that I don't need right now. That's why I don't talk about the things that I've done, and they don't ask me. So if I am there, I'm just sort of there, like I used to be as a kid. There was maybe a little more interaction from time to time, especially with Stephen, because when I was working in the motor trade, I would also sell him some cars for the company that he worked for. So we had contact. It was a bit easier. We connected through technology, through stuff. We even played snooker once or twice. But since not being around the family, and it's interesting because Sharon, I haven't been around the family with Sharon as long as with Sharon as the same with Lisa, and yet somehow almost instantly, we were able to recognize, I connected with her, I could see there was something about, oh, this feels real. This is my cousin and we are family. But what does it mean? I mean, I'm just dealing with a person. I don't really know you. Last time I saw you was 30 years ago. You're a bit younger than me. But there's something about the way you are that I can play with, I can banter with. I recognize. It reminds me a little bit of Justine. But this is my cousin, my family. And she seems real. She doesn't see her mum. She hasn't set foot in that house for a few years herself. They have their own Broigus. So having looked at, what issue? What's the issue I have with Sharon? There isn't any issue. It's simply one of time. 30 years is a long time. A lot has gone on for me that I can't possibly have her catch up. In order for us to be on the same page, we would have to catch up. It's not possible. And it doesn't feel like it's wanted. It's not that she is so interested. They are. I'll say they because I've experienced the same thing from Stephen and Sylvie as I have from the idea I have of Sharon. And that's the thing. I don't know who she is. Again, 3 years has gone by since the last time, and she's dealing with her own illnesses, her own issues, the effects of not having a relationship with her daughter, and maybe sees things differently, and that maybe with no expectation of how it could be, and it doesn't really matter in a sense because it will only either confirm things or let things go, and then it doesn't have to be experienced again, or maybe there's something that can be. My sister has a relationship with her, and if my sister has a relationship with her, then, and I have a relationship with my sister, albeit we've also had long periods of time where we weren't in each other's lives. She's always been there for me to some degree. She's always made herself be my sister. She's always looked after me and done things that if I've needed help, she's been there. And even though lots of time has gone by in between, we've always had a certain kind of relationship with each other. It just doesn't need to be nurtured in a sense for it to still exist. For the others, there seems to have been either a nurturing required, that you have to have regular contact, you've got to keep in touch, you have to send birthday cards or whatever it is, the routine that you all do, that you go round and round in circles doing the same thing all the time with everybody. Oh, I've got to get so-and-so a present, it's their birthday. All these obligations and commitments that being in society, so social norms give you, which I don't do, I don't follow. I'm not really looking to celebrate my own birthday. What difference does it make what day I was born? Here we are again, celebrating the time that I came into the world. Well, look, as a kid, yes, of course it mattered. Kids, you celebrate the birthday, you give presents and so on. But once you get into adulthood, once you start living your life and so on, then unless you have kids that you can continue that, just stop. Why do you have to keep doing it? How old are you? You have to think about it because it doesn't really matter. It's not important once you get past a certain age. When you're younger, all these ages matter. Milestones, 16, 21, 18, 21. There's all these little milestones that confirm and allow children to become fully fledged members of society, free to drink and smoke and get married and so on and vote. And all these things denied children who may very well be very mature and actually in need of some kind of connection to that stuff. Earlier, I was. So when my sister mentioned that she would like this, and I wanted to give her that because I don't get to give her much, she's very self-independent as well, a fear arose about experiencing awkwardness by putting myself in a situation I wouldn't be comfortable in. And there is a strong and powerful tendency to avoid it, so that I don't have to go there just in case. But that is very negative, and it doesn't allow room for something else to come out of it. And if I can accept it and allow it without prejudice, even if it's I guess I couldn't expect much more than that. But at least I didn't shy away from it. I didn't avoid it, because all that does is it intensifies the feeling of Broigus, that there's something wrong there. I have to keep away from them. I don't talk to them. They don't talk to me. We don't exist for each other. I'm not mentioned. No one mentions me. Sometimes I hear Mum talking on the phone to people, and I realised she never mentions me. I don't exist. She never says, Simon did, and oh yeah, that Simon said that, and yeah, he's all right. Yeah, he's just getting on with things. They don't ask. They're not sure how to deal with it. She doesn't say. They're not even sure necessarily I'm still here. It just becomes like it has always been, where I don't really exist, and I'm okay with that. But I know that it's interesting, because I don't normally hear things that make me see that. I don't need to be noticed. I'm not looking for their attention. I only notice that it doesn't come, and I don't blame them for it, because they probably see something in me that stops me, makes them feel like I don't want to have to talk about things, or whatever it is. It's okay. So I'm not trying to get that to be different. I don't want it to be changed, so that I'm asked about, so tell me about your time in Minnesota. How long have you got? It doesn't mean that I can't experience what would be a natural temporary opportunity. I'm not there to join in. I'm only there to collect. And we're on our way out rather than I'm on my way in. But there may be enough opportunity to just experience connection, presence in the same physical space for a moment and see. And there may be other people there, or other things I cannot possibly even begin to imagine that can come from not being closed to what I imagine I don't prefer. That what must happen will be something I don't prefer, and so therefore I have to be afraid of it. I don't have to think that way. It hasn't happened yet. It doesn't exist yet. And so much is created in the moment depending on who I am and what I bring to the present. So there's no point, if I want to imagine that no good will come from this, then no good will come from it, and I might as well not even bother and just carry on acting as if it's a problem. Keep the feeling of Broigus, even though it's not really identified, because I suspect when you look at most feuds, if you really get into it, especially those that have been around a while, it may not be clear what exactly is the issue. And when you finally, if you can, get down to the nitty-gritty of it, it probably feels completely pointless. It's just something that should be able to be resolved really easily. Do so and move on. It's easy to get caught in thinking that the feeling of Broigus, oh no, I don't go there, I don't want to speak to him, no, I don't want to do that, is actually a kind of normal. It gives something. It's easier to hold on to something, to be anti something. It feels more powerful than it is to let go of that and accept and open the heart, because ultimately the reason it's closed is because you got hurt, and you got hurt because you had expectations and beliefs that seemingly weren't respected or were overridden, and you didn't realize that having those things could result very easily in getting hurt by it, and then you blame those who did it to you. He should have done this. They should have said that. It wasn't right. It's not right, and that's a judgment. And that judgment creates a stop, a block. As if nothing can possibly change. It's rigid now. It's set in stone. And whenever you think about, whenever they're mentioned, whenever the opportunity arises for them to come into present, the stone, the block is the thing that's felt, and then you reinforce it by continuing to accept it so that it almost becomes impossible for anything else to happen. Somebody actually has to do something. They've got to do something unexpected that they're not expecting, in a way they're not expecting it, in order to break the spell. Because everything can be in harmony. Everything can find peace. Everything. There's nothing that by its nature, by its purpose, has to stay disharmonious, has to stay in a state of incompatibility. There's always something, because ultimately underneath everything we are connected. And so it's possible to see from that perspective, to find that view. So it is my intention not to get in the way of what just naturally happens. Perhaps it'll be obvious at the time that all of this consideration, all of this looking at stuff isn't relevant, because it just takes a completely different course and something else happens that just makes it right, that reveals the truth of it. All I need to do is bring an open mind, an open heart to any situation, no matter what may have taken place before. No matter. Because everybody deserves forgiveness. Everybody deserves second chances. Everybody deserves to be seen as, it may be that there is more to get, that I don't have all of the picture. I'm missing bits and I don't know that till I find them. I have to leave room for anything that I've become certain about. I have to leave room for the possibility of it changing into something else. Because we know that the things that we call truth, the things that we call reality, can and are fluid and have changed. And when you look back on what you thought was true when you were a younger person to what you might think is true now, it's not the same. Yet they're both true. Back then it was also true. Now it's true. That's true. It's true, it's not true that they're different truths. Things change. So do people. And even though my experience here is that they don't change a lot, they're moving very slowly. They seem to have got bogged down in holding on to the idea that they have found that works best for them. They live their life the way they live their life, and they deal with what they deal with. And the way that my family, Stephen and Sylvie, Sharon, live their life is so different to the way I live my life that it would be difficult to find a way to connect without somebody feeling invalidated. And I don't want to invalidate the way that they do things, because I don't really know what it is they do, and I don't want them to feel like my way isn't valid, because they have no idea what it is I do, yet they will have judgments and opinions about it based on things they were told, gossip, hearsay, that isn't necessarily true. Or even if it was true to some degree then, it isn't necessarily true now. And social norms for someone like me, just because it's, well, you know, you're expected. I've been to many situations where I really, yes, you can make the best of things, you can find some nice food to eat, that it is possible to meet somebody and so on, but often I'm just really happy when we're finished, when we're going. And I was like that as a kid, but I didn't really have a way to say, look, I don't want to come. You go. I'll just stay here. I will appreciate the alone time. I'll do my own thing. I was too young, and I was seen to be too young. And it was just a given that whenever they went, we went with them. I wasn't asked if I wanted to go. I was told when we were going. I was told what was happening, and I just went along with it, because that's what you did. That's what worked. That created the best harmonious experience, because if I didn't, it created a whole kind of Broigus. It still does to some degree, but I am now able to have more say in what it is I do, what it is that I go along with. And that's a struggle for someone like my mum, and a struggle for her brother and sister. they're part of that generation that, you know, transitioned into my generation, and my daughters, our children's generation, are going to really take things another step. But mum's generation, their generation, the way they were brought up, children were seen but not heard. The way I was brought up, effectively, that I was supposed to be seen but not heard, that I didn't really have anything to say, and so nobody really listened when I tried to. And because I struggled with expressing myself clearly, I stopped doing so. So I had very little practice, and when it did come out, it often came out in ways that weren't appreciated, didn't actually allow for the right result, in a sense, to happen. And I didn't really understand why. I didn't get the signals, I didn't notice the nuances or the subtleties. I was dealing with being neurologically different without realizing how different that difference is. I've now had a lot of experience in the world and continued to struggle with not finding ways to be understood well, to be seen as me. Most of it was me, and some of it was them. They can't work with what they can't see, and I can't expect to be seen if I don't offer something that's authentically me. And it doesn't take much. It only takes a moment to project a different image, to put on a different mask, and then project through it for the mask to become completely attached to me, and it's now what I express through and what I experience coming back. And it becomes real because outside the mirror of you reflecting me when you see me sees it real. You make it real and it becomes real. But it could only do that because I had it on there in the first place. I put it on, or it came on, and I have had to go back to find those places when the masks first appeared and look at what they were and what they did, and then start to let out what they were covering, what was behind them that was so in need of them that he got lost in them. Couldn't distinguish between who I was and who they were, and got confused. And it's taken me a long time, and I'm still doing it, to recognize and let go of those things, those beliefs, those ideas that don't help me, that are only helping to perpetuate a way of being with people, a way of doing things that makes me end up just being on my own. I mean, it's just a lot easier. And I do things my own way, which makes sense to me. And I've never been around anybody who doesn't get affected by that at some point. Because they're trying to understand something, they're trying to make it work, compromise, and give me of them. And they're having to do the best they can with the information, with the tools that they're given. And often there's not enough. And they get it wrong, and it causes a reaction in me because I get affected by it, and we're not really able to go much further. Even friendships, just friendships, I don't really have them. I don't really experience. I have been someone who did things with others. Other people looked to me, wanted to spend time, asked me to go out. I was willing to do those things, and it was right. It produced experience, and it gave us opportunity to know what it felt like to be with each other, doing things. It made sense. I understood it, but yet at the same time, I knew that it was they who were, for the most part, controlling it, in, coming up with ideas, believing that I'd be interested or say yes, and I was interested and said yes. So they get used to, I want to do something, oh, I'll get Simon, he'll do this, and I do it because I'm always open, I'm always available, I'll always make time for someone who wants to spend time with me. But since then, I have changed. Things are different, and I tend not to seek stuff like that. I prefer that it happen in a completely different way, much more spontaneous, synchronous type experience, and it can and does. And the more it does, the more I can step back and not feel any need to have to intend, come up with things. What am I going to do now? What do I do next? Well, I could do this. I can just let it all go, and it still somehow still happens. That's the magic, that's the beauty, that's the wonder of what this is, and that's what I want. That's what makes sense to me. It all falls into place then, and there's no confusion.